Ja, hallo meine Whisky-Freunde, vielen Dank, dass ihr mal bei uns seid heute. Wir sind heute wieder im Trompeterschlössle und wir haben einen Whisky-Talk und Inner mit einem ganz prominenten Gast aus Schottland heute angereist. Baur Lac Vins, präsentiert aus Zürich und das Whisky-Magazin. Wir begrüßen ganz herzlich in der Schweiz den Keith Bonnington. Welcome to Switzerland.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's your first time in Switzerland?
No. I think this must be my maybe fourth visit to the market.
Switzerland is similar to Scotland. You know, you have also some hills here, and
I think your hills are even more dramatic, I think, than ours.
And a lot of whiskey drinking.
And a lot of whiskey drinking, yeah, which is why I'm here. Yeah.
Keith, you work more than 20 years in this whiskey business now. You work with Edrington Group, with Macallan, with Highland Park, and all these different brands. And how long do you work now with your bottling, the independent bottler, the Whisky Cellar? How many years?
I set it up in 2017, and there were a few. That was kind of slow to start with, and then I really got going at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, and then the whole world changed with the pandemic. So I almost look at it as from about 2020 to where I am now, 4 years with a full speed at doing it. So I've been an independent bottler technically for 7 years, but really getting going with it for 4 years.
For this time it was a big risk to make independent. Working Edrington Group, it's a very good company, good salary, and good whiskies, of course. And why you do this?
Well, I suppose I've always been passionate about small things starting from the bottom and building up. I'm probably not a big company guy, if I'm honest. I like the idea of being independent, doing my own thing, being my own boss. And Edrington Latterly were a fantastic company to work for, and I left them on very good terms. My role changed in the business as well, and I was around 40 years of age at the time, and I thought this is a good opportunity for me to do something on my own, using the experience of 20 years in the industry and with the contacts I'd built up, and become an independent bottler, and I haven't looked back. It's been great.
What advantages to have a bottler compared to working at just one distillery?
Well, I think the big thing for me is independence. Being an independent bottler gives you that ability to probably be a bit more innovative because you're smaller. You can be a little bit more agile in terms of filling casks that have never been filled before. We might talk a little bit about one of my brands there, Pintail, which is really around sweet cask finishes, and I'm looking for very, very rare casks that I can maybe only buy 2 or 3 at a time, and that's probably of little interest to the bigger companies. They're looking for bigger scale, but for me that's really interesting. Small casks, innovation, agility, and doing things quickly and really on my own terms.
What can whiskies drinker look forward for the Whisky Cellars range? You have whiskies from amazing distilleries like Linkwood or Benrinnes?
Yeah, I do, and I buy as much as I can direct from distillers, and as an industry I think we all look after one another really. I think the bigger companies out there support the smaller guys like us, and I'm fortunate enough to have good contacts in the business to have access to some of these distilleries you mentioned there. I think one of the things I'm really interested in, Linkwood's a good example of what I always see as being quite a fruity distillate, is what Linkwood can be if we maybe finish it or give it a secondary maturation and something a little bit different that maybe elevates some of those fruitier notes in the whiskey. So I think we as independent bottlers can assist the bigger companies, and it's happened for many years with some of the more established independent bottlers have really kind of almost helped create the brand within the bigger business. I think of Gordon MacPhail, for example, and some of the work they've done with their distillery labels. I think they've kind of put these distilleries on the map, or some of them, where most of the production is actually going into blends. I'm really interested in some of these distilleries that are maybe not necessarily showcased regularly as single malts, but actually provide a great single malt drinking experience.
And in Switzerland you're working with the Baur Lac Vins, and everybody in Switzerland now is one of the best hotels in Switzerland, the Hotel Baur Lac, with a nice bar off too. And what does this partnership mean especially for the Baur Lac?
Well, it's huge for me. As an independent bottler, I try to, and it's the reason that I'm out in Switzerland now and have been for the last 3 years really, since the relationship started, is for the Baur Lac and other distributors in other markets to view me as an extension to the team. You know, I want to be supportive. I mean, I do export to 7 or 8 markets around the world, but actually within that, there's probably 3 of them that are incredibly supportive and engaged with me and invite me out into the market. I've said to everyone, you know, that I work with, you know, please, you know, I'm there to be, you know, I'm offering my services to come out and talk about my whiskies. You know, please use that opportunity. Baur have done that, and you know, that has really helped the relationship flourish.
Yeah. Originally, you come from Edinburgh, I see it.
Yeah.
And our readers ask me, you have a shop, you have a special shop in Edinburgh for buying a bottle or something, or it's?
No, I have an office in Edinburgh
My office.
On George Street. I have an office and some bottles on display. I don't actually sell directly to consumer, and even, you know, I looked at online sales in the beginning, but it really wasn't something that I wanted to do. What we do instead is we sell to, you know, established distributors or online retailers. We sell to 2 or 3 online retailers in the UK, for example, who do that better than I can. So there's no physical shop of the Whisky Cellar. You'll see casks in the warehouse, bottles in my office. If you come along and knock on the door at 93 George Street in Edinburgh, you know, most of the time I'll be there.
The sales volume of the Scottish whisky is in the last years going a little bit down because, you know, the price situation, China market, Asia market is always a little problem for the market. What do you think about the current developments in the whisky industry in the future? What is coming in?
Well, I mean, I've been in it now for 21, 22 years, and I've seen mostly ups, to be honest, but there have been, you know, in certain markets there have been downs, and I think that's the nature of the business. You have to get into Scotch whisky with a long-term view of things. It's not just about, you know, the next 2-3 years look like we'll get growth, or the next 2-3 years it looks like we might see some downs. I mean, there are ups and downs in the industry, and I'm sure the industry will bounce back. I do think that in certain markets, you know, maybe the pricing is starting to level out a little bit. I think there were some boom times where, you know, pricing and value continued to rise at a rapid rate, and so was demand. I think we're now seeing in some markets that demand has slowed down, or in certain cases you mentioned there, maybe in slight decline, particularly at the premium end. But then you go into super premium, you look at some of the anniversary bottlings you mentioned there, there's still very much a market for that. I think it's sort of the middle ground that for the moment is being slightly squeezed. I may do a little bit more on the blended side. You know, I think I've always felt that blended Scotch is a bigger opportunity than we've maybe given it credit for in the last few years. You know, that normally provides good value, great quality whiskey for a better price. So, you know, the industry is resilient. It is a long-term view of things that's been around for, you know, since the late 1400s in Scotch whisky terms, and it'll be, you know, it'll certainly outlive me, and there will be ups and downs to come. But yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of a flattening out at the moment. The numbers for the first 6 months of the year that were published just in the last couple of weeks, I think have shaken a few people up, but actually, you know, we know the industry will bounce back.
Good. Tonight we have a special tasting here in the hotel, Trompeterschlössle. What are the highlights at the present in the cooperation with Baur tonight?
Yeah, I was going to say me, but no, I'm not one of the highlights. I'm just here to talk about my whiskies, and I'll talk about my independent bottling business, but also I represent the Bladnoch brand in a number of key markets, including Switzerland. And that's a great distillery with a lot of heritage, you know, going way back to 1817, and under relatively new ownership, you know, in the last 10-11 years, really driving that business forward with some great innovation, and we'll taste some fantastic whiskies. I'll talk about the Whisky Cellar. We have some amazing and varied casks, cask finishes, and some full maturation. For example, this one here, which is a recent release, the Robusto Cigar Malt. 100% sherry cask. It's a blended malt actually, but it's from 100% sherry casks, hence that really dark, rich colour. And we'll talk a little bit about Pintail, which is another of my labels.
It's 100% sherry casks.
Yeah. It is, and it's been engineered to. There's a little bit of smoke in there, so whether you smoke cigars or not, you get that sort of experience of the richness of the sherry, the dried fruits, the The dark chocolate, a little bit of sort of coffee in there. It works perfectly well with a cup of coffee or a dark chocolate, but a little bit of smoke there. So we're not smoking cigars right now. I would pair that with a nice cigar, but it's a great whiskey in its own right. We must taste it. Yeah. Talking. Cheers.
Ein erster Whisky seit langer Zeit für mich. Aber wunderbar. Oh, nice. The aftertaste, the sherry crust. Oh, very long.
Great length on it. It's 8 years old, but it has the finish on it of a much older whiskey, I think. Spice for sure. Lots of rich kind of cake spice.
What is this finger dip? The secret? Is this a big secret? The finger? The makeup of it, yeah, it is a bit of a secret. No, there isn't any. There's no Tamdhu in there. A couple of distilleries very close to Tamdhu, so there is some Speyside influence. There's some Highland. There's actually a bit of Lowland in there as well, and a little bit of Islay, which is where we're getting that little hint of peat smoke, and actually a peated Highland whiskey. But all from 100% sherry casks. The number 2, what we have, it's a Pintail.
Number 2 is Pintail, yes. So
what's this Pintail?
So this is actually, it's an old brand from about 1931 that was launched originally in Scotland by Matthew Glogan's son as a sherry. And I fell in love with the brand, the look of the brand, on the back of buying the Brig of Perth brand actually from Edrington. It was also a Matthew Glogan's son product, and I found this this bottle in some research that I did. Black bottle, white label, with the pintail duck in flight on the label, so you see the pointed tail feathers. So that's the pintail breed of duck.
Beautiful. It's the classic.
Yeah, it's kind of it's got a really nice sort of vintage look. But the reason, the reason it exists now really as a brand, I love the brand, but also this is about single malt, single cask whiskey that will be finished in sweet wine casks.
Okay.
So unusual sweet wine casks. This one in particular actually is it's a 15-year-old Athrosk from Speyside that has spent its final year of maturation in a Fondillon wine barrel from Alicante in Spain. And even some real sort of wine connoisseurs haven't heard of this. Yeah, I mean, it's taken on a little bit of that kind of rosé hue from the cask. It's an ancient wine going way back to the 1400s, but actually the production of it now is really, really small. So I was only able to buy 2 barrels. The nose and the palate on this, it's just taken on enough of that wine character. We have to be careful with some of these barrels because they haven't been used before. Fondillon in particular is one that's never been used in the Scotch whisky business. So when we re-rack our whiskey, we test them after 3 months, 6 months and 12 months because this still has to taste like the distillery product. You know, we don't want this turning into too much of a sweet wine. In your
warehouses then, or in this distillery then?
No, so I use third-party warehouses, but we take the barrels from the distilleries and I then put them into my own warehouse, and it just makes things easier and more, logistically quicker to get things re-racked or get samples drawn.
And your warehouse is in which area?
So the warehouses are Paisley, just outside Glasgow. About 95% of my barrels are there, and it just means they're in one place. If I need samples drawn, it happens quickly. It's I don't have to wait or rely on a bigger distillery who have a million other priorities to
next time we visit in Glasgow, I visit your warehouse.
Please do, yeah. We'll let you try some incredible things.
Jetzt haben wir hier noch was Besonderes, nämlich in der Schweiz ist es so, dass die Firma Baur ganz neu im Portfolio Blättnoch im Vertrieb hat. Blättnoch ist eine wunderschöne Lowland Distillery, ganz im Süden von Schottland. And tell me a little bit about Blättnoch.
So, I mean, Bladnoch is, I think you've been to the distillery. It's a beautiful part of Scotland, and it's not a part of Scotland that many people visit because you don't really pass through it to go anywhere.
Robert Burns, I think so.
Yeah, very close to that sort of Dumfries and Galloway area, very much Burns country. We're near the coast. We're on the river, the Bladnoch River. It's a beautiful location. We do get visitors. We get a lot of visitors actually now in terms of people who've come specifically to make the journey. And it was actually established in 1817, and today it's the oldest privately owned distillery in Scotland. The ownership now at this moment in time is David Pryor, so he purchased the distillery He's an Australian entrepreneur, and I mean, he very much is driving the business forward. I think with some of the new bottlings, you see a lot of his personality and character, and a really great team of people behind it. So I've been doing some work with them on route to market, and I've just loved working on the brand, and it gives me the ability to get back into a sort of team environment, and a really good sort of team environment where we're all sort of feeling like a bit like innovators and creating great new products. And you have Dr. Nick Savage, of course, the ex-Macallan whiskey maker. He's the whiskey maker at Bladnoch, and he's very much about product quality. It is absolutely paramount. So filling into some quite interesting casks also, but everything that leaves the warehouse door has his stamp on it.
Is there also a visitor centre there?
There is, yeah. There's a visitor centre there. Actually, real state of the art. A great place to learn about the brand. There's a nice little cafe there as well, and they will look after you. So I would encourage all your listeners and viewers to visit if they get a chance. It's very easy to bypass Bladnoch and just go up into the Highlands to Speyside or take a ferry over to Islay, but make the effort. You have other distilleries down in that area now as well, of course, that are worth visiting.
There's a question. In our bar we have the 14 years. This is the 19. The range is 14, 19. Or?
At the moment it's 14, 19. We're using different casks. So this is a Pedro Jimenez makeup, and the 14 would be Oloroso sherry. We also have the non-age statement range, which is very much about sort of story driven and colour and character driven. The Vinaya, Samsara, Leora and Alinta. We are constantly reviewing the range, as the industry does. You have to be forward looking, thinking in terms of the profile, the age profiles that we have. What does the future look like? We will be bringing out in the process of bringing out a 13-year-old, which will eventually replace the current 11-year-old, and a 16-year-old that will take the place of the 14-year-old. I mean, these will be incredible whiskies. They are incredible whiskies because I've tasted them, but again, it just gives us that sort of longer term view of things.
And I think the 30 years is also
and we're looking at single cask opportunities as well. So again, maybe having that slightly more independent mindset. I brought some samples out here to Switzerland from 3 very different casks. All 3 of them were very well received. So fingers crossed we'll see some nice Bladnoch single cask out in this market before too long.
Schauen wir uns das mal näher an. Wir haben jetzt hier den Bladnoch 19 Jahre.
That really is my style of whiskey.
This is very good. 100% Oloroso.
Pedro Jimenez, I love that.
Sehr schön. Well good. Ja, im Vertrieb auch in der Schweiz bei der Firma Baur. Und in Deutschland ist, I think in Germany is by the Alba.
It is, that's right.
Alba. Ja, then we hope we have a nice time in the Trompeterschlössle tonight. Und vielleicht kommen Sie mal vorbei. Auf Wiedersehen.